Here's a man who did his share of cattle branding way out west long ago. One of the most colorful cowboys to walk the pages of history was none other than cowboy president Teddy Roosevelt. Long before becoming a president, intelligent and well-educated Teddy had a desire for the Old West and cowboy life. After a hunting trip in the West where, because of his poor eyesight, didn't shoot a thing, he still decided the West was for him, bad eyesight and all. He joined up with a cattle ranch and began to work cattle. What a sight to see. This 25-year-old boy looked like an Eastern City boy if there ever was one. The dude of all dudes. His face was pale white, with a boyish grin that made him stand out like a sore thumb. He was thin and his face was full of teeth. He wore big round eyeglasses and bounded about, crying things like, "Bully, bully, I say there, bully." And when meeting people, he'd say, "Delightful to meet you." In time, the cowhands, they learned to love him and respect this city cowboy because of instances like the one that he told in his autobiography of the Old West. This is what he said about himself. "I kept my mouth shut and my ears and eyes open to learn as much as possible of Western life. I avoided places which cowboys frequented after long cattle drives, where shooting and wild living took place. Drinking, gambling, and swearing were not my cup of tea. However, one cold night after riding for several hours looking for lost horses, I came upon a primitive hotel and decided to put up there for the night. I heard gunshots coming from the saloon across the street. I thought twice about entering there, but since it was a cold night and there were no eating establishments in this poor town, I decided to at least warm myself up and perhaps get a bite to eat in the saloon. As I walked through the swinging doors, I first noticed the bartender with a smile, but I perceived that this smile was the smile of a man who really does not like his job but pretends to. It became apparent to me where the trouble and shooting were coming from. There was a half-drunken, loud-mouthed, cursing, shabby individual across the barroom. He had been shooting and had shot the clock down. As soon as he saw me, he said, "Hey, Four Eyes!" He was referring to my spectacles. I hear you're gonna buy drinks tonight. Ain't that right?" I joined in the laughing with him and the others who were laughing, I perceived mostly from nervousness. I tried to remove myself from the main floor and sat down by the wood stove towards the back, hoping to go unnoticed. But the bad man was intent to cause trouble. He came down to me and said once again, "Four Eyes, he's gonna buy drinks tonight, bartender. Sit up them drinks, 'cause he's a-comin' over now." He leaned over me and pulled 2 6-guns right to my face. I noticed the way that he was standing. His heels were together in an unstable position, and quickly I decided on the next move. I rised slowly from my chair and said, "Well, if I have to, I have to." But as swiftly as I could, I struck him in the chin with a right, and then with my left fist a quick left, and then with my right an uppercut. The unfortunate fella did not know that I had studied boxing at Harvard. I got the last laugh. He fell back and hit his head on the bar counter and knocked himself completely out. I removed his 6-shooters and had no further problem. Fortunately, he had discharged the shots when I had hit him, but no one was hurt. I appreciate that story that Teddy Roosevelt wrote in his autobiography about staying away from drinking and gambling places. Young people listening to me, you might see television commercials where rough, tough, football hero-type people drink And they seem to be having so much fun setting the pace. But you know what they're really doing is setting a poor example. Let me tell you, stay away from places where drinks are served. All through my junior high and high school and college years, when I had the opportunity to frequent drinking establishments, I took President Roosevelt's advice. I didn't hang around wild drinking parties, and I never imbibed in drinking alcohol. In fact, I can honestly say to you, I have never been drunk in my life, and I'm not ashamed of it. I don't have to feel I have to try it to know what it's like. If you want to follow my example, I'd encourage you to do so. It's healthy, smart, and godly. You know why it's godly? Proverbs chapter 23, 20 through 21 says, "Be not among the wine-bibbers," in other words, those that are drinking at all times, partying, "among those that are riotous and eaters of flesh." In other words, eating meat during these fancy parties with alcohol, great festivity going on. Then it says in verse 21, "For the drunkard and glutton shall come to poverty, and drowsiness shall clothe a man with rags." That is a fulfillment of what I see in modern cities on skid rows today. Men that drink, and they don't get to eat a lot of flesh because they don't have the money, but they are clothed in rags. If you want to be poor, that's the direction to take. But I trust that you'll follow Teddy Roosevelt's example and become well known and loved and respected like he. Who knows, perhaps you could even be a president. The man that was knocked out was a forgotten bum, but President Theodore Roosevelt became wealthy, famous, and well-loved. Choose life. Allow the Lord Jesus to bless you, and stay away from alcoholic drinks.